Okay, so let's go in. Actually, we'll start with Moodle first. And we'll go down. I think we'll need some files. Oh, we need to load our files to Box too, don't we? So you probably received an email Box invite. Okay. So where I am there, October 1. We did that. And we'll finish up the Photoshop clock tower assignment also. And then in weeks October 14 through 20, we'll eventually get some of those files going too. So Box itself, if you want to, oops, that to go away here. There we go. If you just go to our website, either UMT's or UMT.edu or mc.umt.edu, and then myumt.edu, you will see Box. So when you click on Box, as you've probably already been through, go ahead and click Continue. You are a part of the university. And then you should be asked for your net ID and your password. Then, just a reminder of where to go. So you'll see business technology. There's, I don't know how many you see. I see quite a few here, but MC Business Technology. Do you see that? Anybody? No? No, really? If you go, so then I'll go further. Do you see the MART 232 fall 2009? Okay, so you don't see the path I see to get here. Okay, that makes sense. So the MART 232 fall 19 HTML5 is your student story. So I think the final deadline for that, I believe, is Sunday midnight. So you still have a little bit of time, but if you're ready to go, you can click there, and it looks like Austin uploaded his already. And then just upload and be sure that you choose folder rather than file. Mm-hmm.
This computer that I've been using is now offline, so okay, moving my files.
You need some time then to get, yeah, that's okay. We'll do that. And if you click down at the bottom here, you can't connect back up.
I tried.
And it didn't do it?
Well,
It's here.
I know, but
And it won't do it, huh?
Right. I tried that. It said later. Couldn't do it. So I just copied my files.
Okay. To your USB.
To your USB, and then
And then
and this one is online, so
okay. So you should be okay. That's really weird.
yeah, isn't it?
Because these two were the ones that were off, and now they're working and that one's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there's I was going to say an IP problem.
I don't know. Anyway, so does that make sense to just upload the whole folder when you're done? And if you're not done, then I understand you can't upload the whole folder yet. Okay, and when I see this, then my Box folder looks like regular, basically here, and I can go to the Box, and I probably need a little bit more space here. MC Business Technology, share, and then where is that again? Make that larger. So then I'm here and I can see your stories. So much easier to open, and I don't have to download the whole folder. Okay, so is that pretty good? Clear on that whenever you get a chance? So, yeah. And I can give you a couple minutes to get caught up on that one. And then in the meantime, I'll go ahead and start Photoshop. And I'll just open up my clock tower. So I know some of you are still catching up on loading to box.
So what am I supposed to do again?
Okay, so did you get to the, I'll go back here. So, no, I would go to, let me get this down a little bit so you can see. So open up a brand new tab. So I'm right here with I'll close this down completely. I'll do it one more time. I'm going to close that down. So brand new tab on a browser. And then go to, and you can go to missoulacollege.umt.edu, you can go to umt.edu, but either one of, either Mountain Campus or our website. Then you should see a myumt.edu, so the maroon colored box at the top, or a my, you might even see a my. Then when you click on that, hopefully you see box. Yep, and then when you see box, you're going to be asked to continue as part of so that's okay. And then you should get the NetID sign in, so you'll supply your NetID and password. And then I've got a couple of levels that you don't have. Everyone, so you will see, oops, that's not the right one that I want to go to. That one. That one. So you probably see MART232 Fall 19 HTML5 student story. Do you see a folder when you go to box? So that one right there. This one? Yep. Yep. And then you can upload. So are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Upload, and then you'll choose folder. Yeah, the only thing is just be sure that you choose upload folder, as long as everything is encased in that folder. So you're inside the MART232, and then just upload folder.
Yeah, hopefully this is, it's copied out there so they're.
And you can check it, or I can check it before you go just to make sure. Yeah, and I can turn my screen off by the time we do that, so I can do that at the end. If you want me to double check your files before you go,
Yeah.
I can do that, but I'll turn off my screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of weird,
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't have an image, if for some reason that image was located on drive C, not into your documents, your folder, it may not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they're probably all in your HTML5, but if not, they won't show up.
I know. I did a whole bunch of work on it, and I didn't save it to this. I just left it on this. So.
Yeah, you'll know today.
Yeah.
And then at least we can go back and forth. If you know which files are missing, we can just put them on the USB and move them.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because that probably won't be on. Sometimes you can turn those off and then back on again, and maybe the EduRoam will pick back up, but I don't know. Okay, so far so good on the upload. Is it still uploading, or did it go pretty quickly?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, our files are pretty small, and we optimized them and made them physically small in Photoshop, so I think that helps too. They're not really large images, except for that one Missoula College one. That's the biggest one. Okay, so I'll go ahead and log myself out of Box then, and then you can go ahead and close that. So just to finish up Photoshop, so if you weren't here on, did we do that a week ago? I think we did that a week ago. So if you weren't here, we're using the file called Clock Tower, Sunset 4, and Pumpkin. And it's in October 7th through October 13th. So it's actually in this week. But we began the project earlier because we had a window of time. And what we did basically, the whole thing, so I'll kind of go layer by layer here. And this is just a reminder for everybody of what we did, the tools that we used. The tools are on Moodle, by the way, so if you go, and there's a whole bunch of images. On September 30th through October 6th, there's a whole bunch of images posted that show screen prints of the layers panel. So my point was to kind of help you out as far as what's located where and what they look like, and so my lines and my descriptions are for that. So this shows some layers here. So for example, this particular layers panel, and there's the layers panel, channels, and paths. Layers is forward. The background layer in this particular example is plain white, nothing there. And then I had 3 different picture images, one located in the top left corner, one exactly in the middle of the screen, and one in the lower right. And you can't really see what they are, but they're layers. So there's a stacking order. Layer 2 would be at the bottom, layer 3 in the middle, layer 4 would show up at the top. The background is white, so if there was any background showing through, it would be white. The background layer is locked, and it's locked from certain editions, and I'll show you that here in just a second. So that's a little bit about stacking order. And by the way, the trash can, we used this the other day, but the trash can looks like a little garbage can. It's on the lower right side of the layers panel. You can either be on a layer and click it, or click and pull your layer down into the trash can. And then adding a new layer, most everything adds a new layer. So when we're going to type text today, when we copied and pasted the pumpkin in, or we copied and pasted the sunset in, it automatically added a new layer for us. But sometimes you might want to add a layer and fill it with the background color of red for whatever reason. So that's the add, that's that second new one there, add layer. Selections, I'll actually go to Photoshop here in a minute, but again, these are pictures of what we did the other day. The marquee tool has different shapes. We have a rectangular marquee tool that can be rectangular. However, if you hold your shift key down, remember it's perfectly square. The elliptical marquee tool without the shift key held down lets you select an oval shape. With shift key, perfect circle. The single row and the single column is truly a single pixel horizontally or a single pixel vertically. I would say it's used for gradations, and then you can repeat that single vertical selection to make a screen full of gradations, for example, like a skyline or something, different shades of blue. The lasso tool, it looks like a rope, and all of them, by the way, there's a pointy arrow for the most part. The point of the pointy arrow is where you want to begin. The plain rope tool is just a click, drag around the selection, and it's your mouse controlling it. So sometimes it can be a smooth, good selection if you've got pretty good control, or maybe you've got a stylus to use, pen stylus. Can be difficult, but sometimes that's your only option. The lasso, polygonal lasso tool is straight, and that's really kind of a connect the dots. Remember, we start with one, release our mouse, hands, click, everything, click on another point. So you're connecting points is what you're doing with the polygonal lasso tool. It was really good for straight sides. The magnetic lasso tool, the idea there was the dark light, and really you're kind of supposed to cruise around an image to select it, but we saw with our clock tower that the hard edge was really a good selection, where, you know, the edge where there was not a clarity in gray tone, remember grayscale, we turned the image to grayscale, not a clean selection. And by the way, all of them, remember the 4 boxes at the top, brand new selection is left, add to selection, subtract from, intersect with. The quick selection tool, we use the magic wand to select the blue sky, remember, and then the blue sky, we could invert that selection to select the clock tower. And we haven't really gone through the spot healing. I think we did a little clone stamp. We'll do some more of that, and then the dodge burn. So I've got more files that we'll work with, but a little bit of correction information there. So could be that it's skin tones, oily areas of skin, blemishes on your skin. There's all sorts of other uses, but those are sometimes ones you can use. The eyedropper, if you need to pick a color specifically from something. The gradient, I can choose 2 colors and gradate them one to another, or I can choose no color. So maybe I want blue to nothing, and then I've got a little bit of blue that fades to whatever color I've got or picture I've got on the other side. And then remember your foreground backgrounds. So my foreground is, if I were going to fill something, it's most likely going to be with my foreground color by default. And you can change the foreground and background colors by clicking on them, and then you get the dropper. Again, we'll be doing more examples using these tools. And then the background, and they can be switched, by the way. So if you really want the background color, you can just do the quick little switch. So the Photoshop instructions, if you missed, I've got the recording from the other day, and then I actually have little instructions on there. And then we'll upload that here in just a minute today. So anyway, let's go back here. And just as a reminder, we started with the little clock tower. That's that plain file. We used all sorts of different selections, you know, the lasso tool. And really, the one that we figured out worked best was the magic wand tool. I can click up in here. It's selecting most of the blue sky. I can go to my add selection. I can click that top right corner, grab it, click this bottom section, click the middle, and I'm grabbing all of it. If I need to clean that up a little bit, I can click one more time. But remember, I'm selecting the sky, so I had to select inverse so that I can select the clock tower. Then all we did was copy and paste, so I'll turn that off. We copied and pasted the clock tower into a layer. So it's whenever you Control C, Control V, it's going to create a new layer and paste that in there. Then the sunset picture that comes from Moodle again, that looked just like this. Well, it didn't look quite like this. There's a blob of pine needles here in the top right corner. And then you can still see a little bit of tree line there. But we basically cleaned this up using the clone stamp tool. And the clone stamp tool, again, according to my instructions in Moodle on the recording and shown on Moodle, you can grab clone stamp. I have to be on the layer, by the way. That's why. Did you notice that? Okay, this happens all the time. So I'm thinking that I've got my clone stamp tool and I'm ready to roll, and I move into my document area and it gives me the old Ghostbuster thing. I can't do anything. Okay, why can't I do anything? I see my layer. I'm not on my layer. So there's a really big difference between I visibly turned it on, but I'm not on that layer to make a change. And that's a pretty common thing. So again, if I want to copy this color of a cloud, I can Alt key, click on the cloud, and then just copy it, but that looks really bad. So I'm going to Control Z that. So we had worked on that already. And really easy, Control A. Remember that Windows, Control A, Control C, Control V. So that file was easily placed within a layer here. And then to move the layers around, remember clock tower was below our sunset. So the only thing we needed to do is just click hold on my clock tower layer and drag it up. And you do need to look for the double-headed arrows. So that's the only thing is, or double-headed line. So when you kind of click that around, see how I get that double-headed blue? That means that I am moving that layer around. That's the only kind of weird thing. And then the last thing we did, we had a pumpkin, and it was a pumpkin against straw. And we figured out that the best thing to do was to start with our elliptical tool for our brand new selection. And then for the little top of the pumpkin there, the stem, we actually had to use the lasso tool and add to selection. So remember, add to selection is the second box. So then we get the pumpkin. So is everybody here other than Chloe? Did you have time to catch up? Okay, good. So what we're going to do then, and I don't know if you remember moving around items a little bit, but the move tool is my four-headed arrow top left, and I have to be on the layer that I'm moving. So again, I'm on the pumpkin, and I could do a number of things. I can move it down, you know, maybe I want it to be like a fall thing, and maybe I want my pumpkin to be quite large. Maybe I want to put my pumpkin up on the clock tower. So we can try a couple of different things. So let's see what it looks like by sizing it differently. So to transform the size, you want to go to Edit. I usually go to Free Transform, but land on Transform. And we did a little bit of this with our pumpkin selection anyway. Remember how we did the skew? So when you go to, and I will go to Select, and oh, I can't because I didn't, let me go up to reselect something, by the way. If you Control click on the tiny layer, so I mean you truly have to click on that itty bitty layer. So Control click, and now I've got my selection again. Then I can go to Select, Transform Selection. But remember those skewing, so the corner handle, and that was with the original document, okay? So anyway, Control D, but at any point, so on my clock tower, if I want to select that again, Control click, and I've selected the clock tower, okay? So I'll Control D that. So I'm on the pumpkin, and I want to go to Edit, and then Free Transform. Oh, and so the other things I can do, scale it bigger, rotate it, skew it again with the Control key, distort it. I can change the perspective, warp it one direction or another. Again, there's clean rotates at 180, 90, but a lot of times you may want to rotate it yourself using a corner handle. And then you can flip it either horizontally or flip it vertically if you need to move it, you know, have it go the other direction. But go ahead and go to Free Transform. And then you should get a corner handle, and if you click on the corner, it should transform it proportionately, I believe. Does yours transform it both proportionately? If you, oh, it's doing the whole thing. Oh, because I've locked my width and my height. See the maintain aspect ratio? If I want to have a taller pumpkin, oh, no, it's not doing that. Control Z. Usually, that's locked. Should be fine there. Huh, are you guys able to size yours like independently? You never used to. I wonder if that's a change. No, that's the skew. I know, which I did. The width and the height. and I'm on free. Yeah, I wonder if that's a change. Oh, now Shift key, Control Z that. I think it's Shift key has to, yep. I think they've changed that. So Shift key, I'm able to do whatever I want to do. So even though our pumpkin had a shape, we can change the shape. I'll kind of get it back to where I think it might be. Something like that. Anyway, so I can, you know, pick this little guy up. They used to have a rotate handle in the middle too, and that's changed. But anyway, I can make this thing to where, you know, it's mostly pumpkin and just a little bit of clock tower, but now it's starting to get a little fuzzy. So I don't really want to do that. Let's go ahead and make it small. And you can shape it the shape that you like. I'll let you decide. And then we're going to put it up on our clock tower. And then you can enter key when you get to that point, and you may have to move it down slightly. Again, you can arrow key up, down, left, right, if you feel like you need just tiny, minute. That's a little big still. So I may, and you can always go to show transform controls. There's a little box, a check box on and off. I usually don't like those because it's really easy to change proportions and move things around if they're there. So I usually turn those off. So anyway, get your pumpkin. Have you ever seen the pumpkin on the clock tower? Yeah, so people climb up there, which I can't even believe they do that. It's crazy. But usually once a semester, somebody climbs up, well, a year around Halloween. So we'll see if there's pictures. Again, they usually have pictures floating around somewhere, but not that that really looks. And what we may need to do, remember, that doesn't look good either. No, we may have to, so it looks like it's too fresh, really. And I don't know if maybe some of the blending modes, so and you can barely, I can't even see my little, it's there. So like it's so small in my layer. Do you see that where you can't physically see that there's even a pumpkin there, but there is a little thumbnail. But you could try maybe darken, no, multiply, linear burn, color burn. I don't know that I like that. Darker color, overlay, hard light, maybe darkens it. There's some filters too. Oops, didn't need to click that. Difference. None of the other ones really work really well. I might just leave it at hard light. So you can move your settings if you'd like to. You can change the opacity if that makes it look better. But kind of what happens when you're layering things, you have to look at everything as a whole. And if it looks, especially shadows, if you've got sunshine coming in, and that's where maybe you might need to flip some things. But if it's totally different from, like, one part of your image has the light coming from the right side, and then everything else you stack has light coming from the left side, it's not going to work very well. And we may want to try to flip that. So we can try free or transform, flip horizontal, and that's maybe a little more consistent. It still seems a little bit light to me, but that is more consistent with the way the light is coming in on the clock tower. So anyway, that's kind of a picky-uni little thing for the tiny little pumpkin, but that's our tiny little pumpkin. Then I'd like you to put your name on this. And there is a T tool, just a type tool, and we'll work with the different types of tool, but I'd like you to work so far with just the horizontal type tool. And then there's a color box at the top. That's the color you're going to be typing in. So if you click that, you're going to be able, and I'd move the box probably out of the way, but assess your particular document, I probably want to put my name across the top here. And I may want to choose even white. White is a bunch of Fs, and you can do FFF, and that's clean white if you want to. I think black might work if you want to try that, but some color that you think shows up. And then basically I've got, you know, 12-point font. That's going to be pretty small. So remember, I'm only looking at 33% size of this particular document. So I might actually want to go semi-large, maybe 60-point, and I'm just ballparking here. There's all sorts of different types of fonts. I can look for something that's kind of scary. I can't remember what there was one that was kind of scary, and now I can't remember what it was. It was a perfect Halloween one. If you find it, let me know. I'm just kind of cruising down here. It reminded me of a bat. Tempest is different. Boy, it's not coming to me now. Did anybody find one? Reminds them of Halloween. Oh, Chiller. It's really small. Can you find Chiller? It's not a really clean font, but then click and drag a box and type your name. And we may need to make it really big. Actually, I'll make it so. We may have to go like 150 points. Yeah, at least probably. And there I am. And again, you can up, down, left, right. So Chiller's kind of a Halloween-y looking one. Then, no use in uploading a really large file to Moodle. Is everybody still typing? Are you good with that? And by the way, to manipulate that type layer, so if I want to add my middle name to that for whatever reason, I'd want to go back to my T tool. And you can kind of tell the T tool what's going to happen. I don't want to create a new type layer. I want to be inside my current type layer. So if I move my T tool outside of my box, it becomes a square around my, you know, the eye, the insertion. That means I'm going to create a brand new box. So if I move in between and I click, I'm inside my current box. So that's, you don't want to add a bunch of boxes. And there I am. So then, if you're good with this, then let's make it smaller. So let's go to image size. We've done a little bit of this before. We're at 72 pixels per inch. That's good for the web, for Moodle for now. This is a tall document, so maybe at max I might want to look at it as maybe an 800 pixel by 600 pixel and say okay to that. And then I want to view 100%. So I want to see what it looks like at 100%. So view 100%. If you posted this on a website, that's the size that it would be. If that's still too big, we can go to image size again. And again, I can go, maybe I want it to be about 500 pixels. And then okay. And again, I'm at 100%, so that's the size it would be at 100% on your screen. So make it smaller than the original. We don't need to have anything uploaded to Moodle that's that large. And this is, again, just a quick little project. Okay, so save it. So file, we had a name the other day, Clock Tower Edited Fall 2019 PSD. Okay, so let's do a file. Save that so that we overstrike your old PSD. And this one shows the Photoshop layers. Okay. And by the way, if I wanted my type to be behind my pumpkin for whatever reason, then I'd want to move it so you can see, but then it falls behind it. So again, I don't want to do that, but anything can be moved around. Okay, then let's go ahead and do File, and then Export, and I think we can do an Save for Web Legacy. And because we don't have transparency that we're trying to preserve, I think JPEG, and in fact JPEG High is probably fine here. We've been through these panels before, right? We did the high, medium, low. Is that correct or not with the dog? Yeah. So I think probably in our case, JPEG High is okay. So let's go ahead and save it. Just put it in your, so go ahead and go to, oh, JPEG format. Let me go. And it'll be, let me cancel this. I'll go back. So File, Export, and you'll see Save for Web. Yeah. So Save for Web, and then the first quadrant tells us, and most likely it remembered where we were at. JPEG High is probably okay. And then Save, and then let's go ahead and put it in maybe just Documents. I don't think we have like a picture folder. I think we can just put it in Documents on your particular machine. And the name is fine, and then save that. So we're going to have two files similar. One's a JPEG, one's a Photoshop. And then when you go to Moodle, then upload the file. That's the, I wonder if we can upload two of them. Let me go back and see if I've got two uploads here. Oops. Yeah. So I put two uploads so you can upload both your PSD and your JPEG version. So you should be okay with that. So far, so good? Uploaded okay? To Moodle. So there is a in week, oh, and it's way up here. So the week is September 30 through October 6th, way at the bottom. And you'll find Photoshop instructions and the upload for Clock Tower. And you should be able to upload both of those. I've got two files set for the upload. And I know this is your practice document. It may not be completely perfect, but you'll just get better and better at selections and such. And then when you're done with that, so I'll go ahead and close that particular file. So we're done with the Clock Tower. And we will continue with some other photos. So I'll go one by one here in a minute. So do you still need some time to upload, or did it a little bit of time to upload? Okay. Well, still working, done? Did it go up a little? So you made a little folder.
Okay. Yeah. Right, and moving them over, it's gotten kind of crazy. Okay, I think this one.
Probably the largest, and then we would have, so you did a ping, that's okay. Or is that the original?
It could be the original.
You can double click it and it'll open, see which one it is. No.
Okay, I still haven't saved it someplace.
Okay, so you can do your file save as.
Export.
Let's first go to save as and make sure that this one. Okay, so this is on your USB.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem. It's going
Okay,
between
so do you want to go to
the
documents?
I guess.
And then in there. And so it looks like, do you want that one to be? Okay, so save that, replace it. Yep, okay. Then you can do your file and then export, save for, yeah. JPEG high would be fine. those documents, so you're good inside your clock tower. And then that would be the JPEG one, so that should be okay.
Okay.
Then when you go to Moodle, yeah, I know. When you work between a USB and the hard drive, it is confusing because they both kind of show the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. So then we want to go here. Is this from upload? You'd click that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, wait.
Let's cancel that one, and then, okay, choose file. So you had done that. Okay. And then documents. And we just so 119.
So, yes.
1010. That's the JPEG, and that's the Photoshop. So both of those, you'll probably have to do one at a time. Can you upload two at a time in Moodle, or do you have to do one and then another? Okay. You may have to select both. It's the PSD, and then you can upload that file.
One at a time.
Or you can go, so you'd have to click that one first, the top one first, and then you have to hold your shift key down. Or control, sorry about that. Oh, it won't let you, yeah, so open. Yep.
Okay, so I've got the TSP one.
Yep, so let's go ahead and upload that one first.
Oh, okay, just upload this one first.
Yeah, so we'll open that, and then it should. That's your JPEG, and that's okay, so then upload that file. Okay, and then I think you can click outside that again. And is it file again? Add, choose file, and then we need to do the Photoshop one. And then open that one. And then upload that file, and then there should be two. Yep. And then save your changes. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, I guess you can't do the control key to select non-consecutive files. Okay, so when you get that uploaded then, we want to, again, you can close down the clock tower. We're done with that. Back to Moodle. And again, we've already used the clock tower, sunset, and pumpkin. So we want to go to the October 14th through October 20, and it's available to you, so you may just have to switch your week. And these are so there's different tools, whether they're kind of healing tools. We'll work with the red eye tool, the clone stamp, healing spot tools and selection, brush tools, which include the size, the hardness of the brush, the opacity, and the flow. We did a little bit of that already with the clone stamp. Foreground, background colors, again, you've got a little bit of that already behind you. The dodge and the burn tools and the smudge tool. And then we already did some text with the horizontal regular tool, but we're going to try the horizontal type mask tool. You've done a little zooming. I think we worked with fit on screen, and we know how to view it 100%. So some of this will be review anyway. Let's first start with downloading Lake North. I just want to go through some of the color adjustments. So again, if you click on that, they're all set to automatic download. So then we can go, when it downloads, you can go show in folder, and then Control C to copy it. And let's just go ahead and move it into documents. Control V. Whether you put it in a folder or not doesn't matter. So just somewhere where you can access it. Then we can open it in Photoshop, and when you find Lake North, you're going to have to right mouse on it and then go in the middle. You'll find Open With. So if you open it, it's probably going to default to the little photo viewer. So Open With and then Photoshop, and it should open relatively quickly. This was, again, probably taken with my old Olympus. Remember that old camera that I had? Image size. Yeah, 1800 some by, so it probably was still my Olympus. And it was a lot of years ago, driving up by, I think that's Wild Horse. And it doesn't look like it was a beautiful day, but it really was. So this kind of tells you there's a couple of things here. I wasn't driving, I was riding, so I should further clarify that so that you don't think I'm snapping pictures as I'm going, 60, 70 miles an hour. But you can see the blurry, I mean, that's a blurry photo. The lower left, the weeds are blurry. There's nothing I can do about that. The blue that I thought was so spectacular, the sky was really blue, the mountains had really white snow, and the lake was really blue, but it just didn't, it's all washed out. So two things, if you have a bad photo or a blurry photo, there's really not a lot you can do. But if this is all you have, and maybe I want to use parts and pieces of it, maybe there's only a small square that I can cut out of it and size it down, maybe I can make it work. But we'll try to fix it the best we can. So let's click on image, and there's some auto tools that can kind of work okay. It depends on how bad your image is, really, in some cases. There's some shortcuts. I rarely use the shortcuts. It's, again, the mouse is easier, but those that get used to this program probably do that all the time. So image auto tone. And what I find with auto tone, I feel like this is better designed for facial tones. It seems like it adds some yellow. Can you see where it added yellow? And you can do a Control Z, and then I think is it Control Y to redo. Now I can't remember what the redo is. Go back to auto. Anyway, but there's a difference between, it seemed a little bit bluer. So again, if you're looking at photos in what tones need to be added, and sometimes it can be opposite too, but I've got a lot more yellow going on, so I can see that the weeds have color. My green came out way more. It looks much more olivey and green here. The blue stayed okay. The mountains gained, again, I think because of the yellow, gained some tone. But the blue sky, I feel like that then became a little bit yellow to me. So let's go ahead, and again, you can Control Z that. There's an auto contrast. And I feel like what happens with auto contrast, it tends to maintain some of the blue, and also gave me some of the golden tones. So I feel like contrast in this particular image was better. And there's a third one, auto color. Auto color is a little bit of a mixture of both. It's kind of more on the tone side to me, but maybe not quite so vivid. In this case, auto color doesn't really work very well, so I'm going to undo that. So sometimes the really quick auto tools work great. There's also, so if you go to image and then land on adjustments, we'll try some of those too. So image adjustments, do first of all brightness and contrast. And I would recommend moving your box, any box that we're working with, kind of out of the way so that I can see the blue, the green of the trees, the yellow, so I can kind of get the picture here. Preview most likely is checked on, but you want to make sure of that, because if it's not, you're not going to see what's happening here. So I can increase, you can increase them or decrease them one at a time. There's also an auto. You can try clicking the auto, and I don't know if it's taking a long, yeah, so there's my auto, and what it did, it decreased brightness slightly, and it increased contrast by a whole bunch. If I want to reset that auto, I can go to Alt key, so see how cancel, when I press my Alt key, it turns to reset. So I can click that. I can also file revert, remember that, but I want to keep this on. So you can hand alter them. I can decrease, increase brightness, decrease, increase contrast, and again, get to where you think the image looks pretty good. And it could be that I'm only looking at maybe I'm looking at a small section here that I'm going to use of this image, because the rest of it isn't very good. And let's go ahead and cancel this so you can see how that tool works. And then let's go to image adjustments and then levels. This one's a little bit different, and again, move the box around if you need to. So this tells you what you already know. Do you see the little histogram here? And there's a dark colored triangle, a middle colored triangle, and a really light colored triangle. What does this histogram tell you? It's mostly light. It's really heavy light. In fact, there's very few midtones, but there's quite a few of the light tones. So we can change that. There's also an auto adjustment here. It would work similar to, you know, how you just click it basically. And then there's some options, you know, enhancing monochromatic contrast. There's some other things, brightness, contrast. I'm going to cancel that. But I can click and move these around. So if I want midtones to be increased, if I want highlights to be increased, if I want darks to be increased, I can just move these sliders around. My output levels, so they're a little bit opposite, but you can kind of do the same thing with that too. So that's one way to, again, with levels, move them around. Let's go ahead and reset this one. So there's an, again, Alt key and reset. There's also some, and we'll work with these in another one too, but there's sample point, set my sample point. There's a black one, a gray one, midtones, and highlights. So we'll try each one. So if I click my black one, it's really hard to find black. So there might be some darks over by that particular weed. If you can click really, really well, there's a dark right in the, you know, crook of that tree right there. But it basically changes, so you can see that it added more darks. That may or may not be your best choice, so let's Alt reset that. The midtones, to me, the midtones are hardest to work with. I rarely get anything that works, but I mean, you can click on it. All I'm getting now is like really a lot of blue. Control Z that. It doesn't really matter, I think, where you click. Ooh, now there I got. So it's almost like it's opposite. So if I click on the blue, I get more golds. Control Z. So midtones are kind of hard. Highlights, even the mountain. So if I think that's really super white, it's really not super white. It might be that that's about the whitest piece, and that's not even really working. So I think, I guess in my practice with this, the dark setting my black point seems to work best. And sometimes, you know, the tools work similarly, but one can give you a better result than another. So that's why I'm introducing all the tools. Another one that I like to use is image adjustments and then curves. And again, this kind of shows you the same thing, and you may have to move the box out of the way. The histogram is heavy right, so in other words, it's lights. And most, you know, attractive images have some sort of an S curve to the darks, mids, and lights. So what you can do is kind of make your own little S curves and position them where you think that they should be. And I can manipulate where those little points go, see if it changes it, move them out, move them in, and move them up the scale. And again, the same thing here. I've got my set black point, the same thing we saw on the last one, set image to gray point, and then my white point. So those are similar, but this tool works seemingly pretty well too. Again, there's auto. You can also manipulate different presets. I can manipulate just the reds if I want to. So depending upon what your image is. Make it really goofy. So cancel that. That's probably, as far as the adjustments. The exposure, there's probably multiple problems with this particular image. Exposure might only be one of them, but that doesn't, sometimes changing exposures just a little bit can really help. This one isn't really going to do much. So we can change a few of the other ones, but probably the other tools are doing the same thing. So anyway, I guess message there, poor picture is poor picture. Okay, so I think That's probably good there. I mean, there's all sorts of tools and such here. Remember when we went to image mode and grayscale and we turned our clock tower to grayscale? It told us, wait, don't do that. Go to image adjustments, black and white. So this preserves some of the detail. Again, we can just revert, which we did, and we got it back again. But black and white has one kind of fun thing. There's a tint, remember sepia? Does anybody, have you ever heard of sepia toned photos? So this is kind of fun in that you get some sepia tones. And then I can manipulate some of the reds, the yellows, the greens, which isn't really doing much, the cyans, the blues, and the magentas. So you can kind of make things stand out a little bit more. And then I can change the hue. So if I want it to be a little bit more orange, like more sepia, I can do that. So anyway, that's kind of fun. So I'll cancel that one. So let's go ahead and close down then Lake North. All right, and then go back to Moodle. And let's go to Red Eyes. So if you click on that one, and we'll do the same thing again. So show in folder, let's copy it, move into documents, paste it. Okay, so I don't know that we'll need these again, but if we do, we can, they're easy to get to. So let's open that again with Photoshop. So this is my daughter and her friends from about 5th grade. Can you tell which one is my daughter? Top one, yeah. Okay, so a few things here, and let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. The two that have the brown eyes, you can tell that the red eye is quite a bit different. I think they probably have bigger black pupils as well. Now, cameras today, again, this is my old camera, and I think they were in the basement. So perfect red eye conditions. But you see this with dogs. Does anybody, you can tell I love my dog, but do you ever take dog photos? So even pretty decent cameras and cell phones, and I think it's because dogs still have those really big black, you know, circles in the middle, but there's still some issues with that. There's a really great red eye tool. And I've got mine again in those two columns. You probably see a Band-Aid looking tool. And if you click on that again, you should see red eye. Okay, so click on that one. The idea here is that you have the plus sign. You click and drag a box around the eye, and it fixes it like magic. You might have to, depending upon the eyes of these girls here, you might have to drag a couple of different times if the red doesn't go away. But for the most part, it magically works. Isn't that sweet? Old photos, you know, aunts and uncles, parents from a long time ago. Okay, and then we'll concentrate on the top one here. The spot healing tool, this one works, so I would say it works maybe best for blemishes or something, you know, if you have pimples or moles or I don't know, scars you want to get rid of, some things like that. We'll try it with some areas. So, you know, there's a little bit of dark circle look under a couple of the girls, and, you know, you can try to remove that, but there's probably better tools. Some, you know, highlights, you know, caused from, you know, either oily skin or light shining, goofy, you know, lamp light, something like that. So there is some issues, but the spot healing tool, so first of all, the deal with that one, so we'll go ahead and grab it. But the deal with that one is we want to lasso the spot that we want to heal. So we don't want it to go everywhere. We want to just fix the location. So let's go ahead and click on our lasso tool, and we want a new selection. It probably would already, help us out with that, but new selection, we'll go ahead and use a 0 pixel feather. And if I only want to correct, and it could be that I want to correct this little highlight right here. So if I draw a little shape around it and do that, and then I go to my spot healing brush tool, and then you can see that when I'm outside that tool, it doesn't let me fix it anywhere but inside my shape. And again, I can kind of, do that little number. Control D to deselect. And I don't know that I would want to remove 100% of that color, so that may or may not be the best tool that I would choose. But it did a pretty good job removing that shiny spot. Now there's a little bit of an issue when we try the same thing. So let's say that we want to kind of try to clean up around here. The problem is I've got, and that's truly black, I pasted these on a black background, so that may come into play. I've got some pretty pinky colors, I've got some white colors, I mean there's just all sorts of colors. How this tool works, so I'm going to, kind of click and drag a little shape here. So what this tool does, the spot healing tool, where I paste, it averages the colors all within that little circle and fills it in. So I'll try to do the same thing here. And it's actually Control D. It's not too bad, but do you see that there's some dark? It's like it's too dark. Can you tell on yours? Feels too dark, okay? So I'm going to Control Z, actually I might have to edit, undo, and then Control D to get that to close out. So sometimes, depending upon the other colors that are in the way or surrounding it, it's not a great tool. The healing brush tool, you know how the clone stamp worked? Healing brush tool works a lot the same. So I have a brush size, I have a brush hardness, I might want to go to about a 50% hardness. And here again, so I'm going to sample, so I'm going to Alt key, click on what color I kind of want to paint on there, and then I can, try to do some of the painting. Now, I don't think that this is probably, so that's not working very well here either. So maybe in a little bit of the area might work, but I don't think that that's great either. So I'm going to edit, and we'll go undo, undo, undo. I think that's about where I was. So sometimes that can work super well though. Okay, so that's a lot like your clone stamp. There's some other tools, actually just your brush tool. It looks like a paintbrush. So find your paintbrush tool. And this is kind of weird. So if you go to your set foreground color, so click the little set foreground color, and then I am on a color somewhere. I want to move my cursor out and it becomes an eyedropper. And then I want to eyedrop kind of a pinky tone that's near the highlight. Okay, so pinky tone, and where you click is totally different. So there's a big difference between just, millimeters apart. Okay, so I kind of want this pinky tone, and then okay to that. And I may not want, the other thing, I've got a 1 pixel brush. That's not going to work. So I want to change this, probably I'm guessing to somewhere around 25, just ballpark, maybe even less, 20 probably. Possibly even less than that. And I think I want a softer, again, I might want about 50%-ish brush. Again, I don't know that there's a formula. And the other thing I probably don't want to do, so I'm going to draw at 100% opacity and 100% flow. I don't think I want that. Can you see that hard pink on there? I'm going to Control Z that. So I want this to be, again, I'm just ballparking around 50%, both of them. And then you can click and drag and go over the shape itself. And I'm leaving a little bit of the highlight. So I want to leave dimension, but I'm just softening it ever so much. I don't know if that will work. We could try it a little bit with the color in the cheeks. This is a little bit more difficult because if I paint over where it's dark, it'll become darker. So and I can try lightening it, then maybe I can try some more pinks, and then maybe even drop that way back. Again, sometimes you have to drop things way back to keep your that. I don't know if I can quite. I might even try my old clone stamp on this one with less flow and less opacity. To try to soften it. Anyway. So that's painting. The brush tool, before all the really cool tools, the brush tool was used a lot for painting, and especially when you're decreasing, so you can do, you know, kind of minor, maintain your highlights and shadows and such, so you have some dimension contrast. Some other fun tools, so there's a sharpen, a blur, and a smudge tool. Where is our, oh, no, I want the lollipop looking one. I want the dodge and the burn tool. So the burn tool works really good for around the eye. I know we're just about done here, so we'll finish up with this one. You find the burn tool, okay? Click on that. We want a tiny brush, so probably like 3 pixels, something like that. Probably 100% hardness, maybe even 2 pixels. 2 pixels at 100% hardness might be okay. Might have to zoom in. So the idea with the burn tool, and what I'm going to do is burn the color that's right around the eye just to give it dimension. I'm not changing her, I'm adding depth, contrast. So all I need to do is click and drag around that. If your clicking and dragging is not so good, you can do tiny clicks. So we're just adding a little bit of color, little depth. You can go back over it if you think you need a little bit more depth. And then the other kind of fun tool, there's a smudge tool. It looks like there's a blur, sharpen, and smudge. So you might see what looks like a teardrop. And then the smudge tool. So again, I want tiny little, probably, you know, 1 or 2 pixels, tiny. Probably 100% hardness. And what I'm going to do is click and drag so I can add eyelashes. And again, it's the color. I'm just using the colors that are already there, so I'm not really changing anything, but I'm just adding. So see how nobody's real anymore? So let's go to view 100%, and you can really tell, I mean, I didn't do a whole lot, but the left eye looks far brighter than the right eye, right? So there's just little things. I'm not changing her. I'm just doing little things to kind of brighten that up. And that might be, you know, magazines, online, if you're selling makeup, I don't know. Okay, so let's stop. It's 1:50, so we're done for today. So I'm not going to have you turn anything in on Moodle. So we'll continue on. Next time I've got Grizz flag, rock 2, and then the bowfin drain, and then I've got a little rust file there. So I'll probably, there's a 10-pointer. You don't see it, but I'll turn that in on probably Tuesday, and then wherever we're at, we'll just turn that in on Tuesday. So no homework. You don't need to save this, so no to save it. Close everything out, and I don't have anything